Man, I can't even tell you the last time, like, or the time before that, I was like that drawn in by a game, and I just could not put it down. Like, absolutely could not put it down.
It's tough to even take out the brainstem, and it's very dangerous. That's where your centers for breathing, your heart rate, everything is controlled at there. So no, you couldn't be able to take a part of that out.
Like that. So there's parts of that game where it's like very scripted in a specific way. So like you kind of like game the system.
This is why none of us have ever grown up, because they keep re-releasing we're in the time loop. They keep re-releasing the same damn games every year. Yeah, and nobody likes us.
Yeah, The Last of Us, now called The Last of Us Part 1, A New Hope.
What's up, guys?
All right.
What's
And
up,
we're-
everyone?
Hey,
Smash that like button. Hit that subscribe button.
be sure to ring the bell.
Leave us a highly negative and hurtful comment.
Please, I love them.
Yes.
Please.
Hurt me more, Daddy Internet.
With
I-
nothing constructive to say.
I missed
Leave
the dislike
destructive
button.
criticism for each and every one of us.
Yeah, I miss the dislike button on YouTube a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's
Okay.
still there, isn't it?
It's still
Now
there. on,
comments
like,
just have to
the
be
app.
extra rude.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's not recorded.
Yeah.
Jerks.
If people making the videos
Cool,
can still
guys.
see them, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You just have to go in the comments and say something then.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and if
So,
any of you
since
guys
the
have
last
any like
time-
really cool drop shipping stuff, I'm all for it. Let's all go.
Drop shipping? What's that?
Don't look into it.
Oh no.
Okay. So what have you guys been playing since the last time we talked?
Well, I know what a lot of us have been playing since we talked about the Souls series all last time.
Man, I gotten so frustrated with Sekiro. I was just like, man, I remember why I stopped playing this game.
Mhm.
I was like, man, I really want to play this game. And then you play it again. You're like, man,
Man, I really
this is why I
fucking hate
never
this
finished
game.
it. I started Sekiro and beat it a few days ago. I fucking love that game so much. Yeah, it was. I don't know. It might actually be my favorite one personally. Like it gets rid of so much of the stuff I dislike about the other Souls games. Like, you know, having to focus on like, you know, creating a build, which I know a lot of people love, and that's not a bad thing necessarily. But I kind of like having like a very definitive play style, and that's what Sekiro really goes for. It's the only one of the games that has a fucking pause button. Even when you're offline in Dark Souls or Elden Ring, it doesn't matter. You can't pause it. You know, your fucking house is burning down and you're fighting fucking Radagon. You got to keep going.
That's awful. That is absolutely awful. That
isn't it?
Apparently-
Pussies need pause buttons.
Apparently there's
Yeah,
some like
dude.
really obscure way to pause Elden Ring. You have to like go like 4 levels deep into the menu and hit like a head
Mhm.
button. And
Yep.
It'll like and then it'll pause it.
Yeah, it's a very cumbersome process. When they
Yes.
could have just, again, if you're not, even if you're playing online, if you're not in the process of being invaded or, you know, doing multiplayer, there's no reason why you can't pause the game. You know, there's just, it's such a stupid and artificial way to enhance the difficulty. I don't know. It's just really.
I think there was something in Demon Souls too where you had to like go into photo mode and it technically pauses the game if you're like offline or whatever. You go into photo mode.
in the PS5 version.
Yeah, remastered or remake, whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a specific reason as to why they opted for no pause button?
Because
I
it's
just
online.
Googled it.
So-
Because it's asynchronous multiplayer and what have you,
Is that
so
really
it's
it?
still technically online, I guess. With
Like
well,
if you're paused, then just make it so you can't be invaded. Like that's all they have to do to make it work. Like it would take a day of work to figure this out, but it's a part of their DNA now. And again, Sekiro being the only one that's not really an online game. Like there's some online elements, but you can't be invaded and you can't help out people. So it's the only one of them that actually has a real pause button. And lo and behold, most people consider it like the hardest one. So it doesn't obviously take away from the difficulty by having it there.
Does
So,
Armored Core have
I
one?
fucking, I love. Yeah, Armored Core does, because it's not really, again, an online focused one either.
Okay.
Not really a Souls-like either. So yeah, that one actually does have a pause button too. And it's also by far, at least of the games I played of FromSoft, their easiest game. Like once you find the right build in Armored Core, like you just can't lose. Like, it's,
trash everything.
Yeah, all you have to do is get 2 grenade launchers and 2 Gatling guns, and you're over. It's over. You don't even.
Does it take a while to get that?
Anymore. Honestly, no. Like it takes a while for you to figure out the build that you like, but once you find the one that works for you, which shouldn't take too long in my experience, it's a super one of the. I mean, in my opinion, by far their easiest game to get through.
Nice.
Also, the one I want to hear the most from though is you, Frash, because you actually got further into Elden Ring than you had previously. So I want to know about your escapades.
This is true. All right, so my first run through with Elden Ring, I didn't know what the hell I was doing at all. I spent way too much time customizing a character. I ultimately put a hat on and couldn't see their face.
That's so true.
That's so funny.
So, yeah, my first character that I played when the game came out, I played a confessor, and while the stats on that character were pretty good for like starting out, I would have spent all the time building a character like that just to have a big hood. So, I realized after not picking the game up for an extended period of time, and then us talking about it, I was like, you know what, I'm going to give this game another shake. So I jumped back in. I went through the tutorial level on how to actually play the game, which was incredibly useful, and also just I think my first instinct was to just run through and just button mash my first time through, and I realized you have to learn the timing of everyone's attacks. So I, instead of going north, I ended up going south out the gate, and apparently that's like maybe the easier route. I noticed I was having a lot better of a time dealing with the enemies down that way. Maybe that's the ideal path first. But then I ended up just kind of roaming around and exploring the world, and did a couple side quests with the caves and all that. I ended up picking what's the first character selection? Vanguard, or not a warrior, but
I can't remember. It might be that, but it's like the more standard fighter character, basically.
Yeah,
like a knight or something.
Yeah, you're almost like a knight. Yeah. So the build I'm going for, the build I'm going for is I guess just like a strength dex build. I ended up picking up well, it originally was a claymore, and then I found a vendor that had a Zweihander. So, the
Zweihander.
Yeah, and that's just like my big pokey stick, and I've been having such a good time. I learned how to effectively do horse combat, and I noticed that once you dump a few levels into something, the game doesn't get easier, but you could take more hits, and so you're not constantly just dying every single time. So where I stopped last night, I think I'm level 35 or 37, somewhere around there.
Nice. Are you still in the Weeping, whatever the fuck it's called, Weeping Isle?
Oh, the Weeping Peninsula.
Yeah.
No, I'm out of that now. I ended up going all the way south to that big castle, and I got that sword that's made out of 1,000 swords or something. which is really,
Yeah.
really cool.
That's
Sword
the
of
one
a
I
Thousand
used
Truths.
my
Okay.
first run.
Okay.
The Grafted Greatsword, right? I think it's
Yeah,
called.
yeah, or something like that. I'm having an issue with it right now where it's not doing as much damage as it should. I know it needs a strength of like 40 to like actually use effectively, but like
Yeah.
whenever I use it, it does like chip damage. Is that what
You're not gonna be
happens
able to
when-
really
when-
use it until you're at strength 40. Which again, my first time through, I was a pure strength build, and that was the sword I used for endgame.
Okay.
But yeah, it takes a while for you to be able to use it. And at least when
Okay.
when I played it, like I got that thing leveled all the way. I had my strength up to like 60s, and for like the final boss, like it was doing like chip damage still, because strength that game was not well optimized for strength builds, at least at launch. But this was like in the first week that I played, so maybe they fixed that since. I hope they did, because they've changed a lot of the balancing for weapons, for both better and worse. So I'm really hoping that's the case for strength builds, because every time I've gone back to replay that game, that's my preferred build. I mentioned to you guys, I like the glass cannon, like super high damage, low vitality, but I don't plan on getting hit too much. But yeah, they basically made that build just not viable in Elden Ring, at least at launch. So I really hope.
I can't remember. Is there a way to respec in?
Yeah, there is. I had to respec because it just wasn't working, because I was getting one hit, like one shot by every enemy that was late game.
Yeah.
Even though I did have a decent amount of vitality up to that point. I don't put nothing in vitality usually. It's just like maybe one every 5 levels I put in vitality or something like that.
Yeah.
But you really can't do that in Elden Ring. You have to level up vitality pretty consistently, especially for the end game.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll probably have to start doing that. I think I'm like vitality 20 right now or something.
You need to be at least 40 for the end game.
Okay.
From my experience.
Definitely put more points in endurance too. Like
That's
in
definitely
Bloodborne,
helpful.
I ignored endurance a lot, and I just like in that game I feel like you could be a powerhouse and just get through. But in Elden Ring, I learned the hard way. Like you really need to put some endurance, put points in endurance, because you're going to be dodging a lot.
Yeah.
And
That's my default. It's when I play Dark Souls 1, it's just basically endurance and strength and a little vitality here and there. Like that's how I've always done it.
Gotcha.
so level up everything.
Across the
So you're
board.
good. So you're great at nothing.
Yeah, he's just jack of all trades, master of none.
Master of none.
So yeah, then I just went around like I went around to all the map stones on the lower half.
Okay.
So like the first starting area, going over to Caelid, and then down to the Weeping Peninsula.
Mhm.
So I have all the maps unlocked for that area. And I did you know that there's a secret path around Margot into the I didn't know that, so I stumbled across it because I kept getting my ass kicked.
Mm-hmm.
I kept getting him down like a quarter health, and whenever he like would pull out that warhammer, and then he would just like do like a spin smash attack, and then like do a quick jab attack with that stupid dagger.
Yeah.
It's like I face it every single time. I can't jump, I can't get out of the way. And like I've tried like fire bombs. I've tried the summon with the fire bombs.
He's not even the main boss of
I know.
of that area. But he's actually. Most people seem to agree he's a little harder than the actual boss of that area.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna get him.
You will.
Yeah. So I just have to keep figuring it out. But no, I'm having a way better experience with it now than I did at launch. So
good, man.
So yeah, that's my Elden Ring update.
Nice.
Awesome.
Do you guys?
How about you, Blake or Danny? Oh.
Well, I was gonna ask a quick question about builds in games. Do you guys tend to lean towards strength builds, or like do you try to if there's something like strength, like sorcery or wizard type stuff? You know, do you like which one do you tend to go towards?
Depends on the game for me. In those games, I'm usually strength because
Okay.
I don't find the magic use to be all that fun in Souls games. But really just depends on the game. And I'm just, you guys know, I'm more of an action game kind of guy, so that does typically tend me to lean more toward, like, you know, sword wielders and stuff like that. And it's just obviously a little, you know, simpler, easier to upgrade and everything. I said I was a paladin in Baldur's Gate 3, so that was a new experience for me. But it's still pretty much, you know, a damage
Banging people
dealing,
with a
mostly melee.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And you have other party members in that too, so you kind of have to build around them as well. So
Right.
kind of got me out of my comfort zone by having to manage so many different people.
Yeah. Yeah, Blake, the best way I could, like, best thing I could say is, like, you know, if you're gonna be stupid, you better be strong. So,
So it's funny you say that.
You're not
My
gonna
yeah, I have a buddy who does. He just makes himself buck ass naked and just carries around a giant club and just starts beating people with him. That's his build. He calls it the Unga Bunga.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're gonna go Unga Bunga build, you better be strong.
I don't even think the armor like even increases your defense like that much either. Like,
It honestly doesn't.
it doesn't. Like between the different armor sets, I'm like, oh, this is gonna give me so much more power, and I'm still getting one-shotted by like fucking crabs and stuff. So
Yeah, yeah.
There was only certain-
It's a big crab
sets.
though.
Yeah, I ended up asking a friend. I was like, "Hey, like, you know, what's better, like resistances or like overall, like, you know, stat affecting, like, you know, physical negation?" He's like, "Dude, I just dodge roll and I just wear armor for style." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah, there's not too many of the
Nice.
games where I think in Dark Souls there's like different armor sets that were useful. Like God, I can't remember his name. Havel, the big giant armor set, because it's super heavy, so you can't obviously do a light roll unless you have like a shit ton of endurance or what
You
have
have
you. carry
Havel's
the
ring
equipment
though.
load.
Then you
Havel's-
might be
yeah,
able
that
to...
does help. But yeah, like that armor I know was a big one that actually did offer like pretty high defense, if I'm not mistaken, and like I guess less knockback, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember off the top of my head,
Yeah.
but only a handful of those. I usually just run sword and board and like a knight's armor, just because I've always liked that. Like usually I'm very generic and like, you know, like fighting games, I always play like the main title character. In Dark Souls, I usually use the cover armor if I find it. So
That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just games like that. I always get conflicted. Like, I want to try and do the magic route, but it's a lot. It takes a lot longer, and you know, like I'm so much weaker, you know, than others. You know, stuff like that.
Elden Ring definitely is more fun with magic than the other Souls games. Like, you know, in most of the other games, you basically have just like tiny little blue, you know, dot that follows and tracks an enemy.
Yeah.
Soul arrows.
Cooler spells. Soul arrows, okay, you know,
Gotcha.
but basically it's all pretty kind of boring. And with Elden Ring though, like a lot of the magic became like more melee, like with the Sword of Night and Flame. You know, you had to be a magic build really to wield that sword.
Or the
I feel like
great,
a lot of
the great
spells,
butterfly or
take forever.
moonlight
to,
sword.
like, the spells just take forever to like wind up and do too. Like
That's a
some
problem.
of the dragon spells, it's just like you're getting ready for it and then boom, one shot by a crab. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Who's beeping?
That's me, guys. I'm getting paged. I'll be right back.
All right. No worries.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those.
Nope, that's me. I gotta go to the hospital, guys. I'll see you later
Oh no.
for some brain surgery.
So yeah. I always get conflicted in
For
games.
rectal
like,
cancer.
Like the most I pretty much, the most I did with like Skyrim, I remember was like get the Fusro Da. I was like, okay, I don't need to do magic anymore. Let me just, you know, just axe heavy, swing axe. You know, that's all I would think about. Or,
Yeah, I'm
but then I did, very very quickly. But then I did the whole vampire thing. I'm like, this is fucking sweet. So.
See, I did the whole. I didn't do vampire stuff in Skyrim, but I did it in Oblivion. and I remember getting really annoyed with like not being able to go out and stay time and all that.
Oh yeah. Well, that's why I had 2 different saves, so
Yeah.
I didn't have to. And it wasn't that I was running them concurrently. It was I had one save before I became a vampire, and that just in case I didn't really enjoy it after a while. So
Just eliminate that timeline.
yeah, basically, yeah. It's non-canon now. It's not. So.
Disney bought out your game saves.
Yeah, because they didn't give any money for the shares though. So sorry, Joe. What did I, before I cut you off?
Oh no, man! I was
No, we were asking what you were playing.
not at all.
Yeah.
So I was playing. I'm playing Cyberpunk right now, and it's not a super in-depth RPG. It's more actiony, but there's still some things you can do. Like you can like hack into things and be like a net runner and all these like cool things, but like it's way quicker just to like shoot people like with a normal fucking gun, and like occasionally I'll for fun like use my tech like my cyber eye to like overheat someone and like set them on fire, but the same amount of time it took to do that, I could have shot him and like 3 of his friends, because the gun I have is like the top tier, and it's like 1 headshot each enemy kills them, and like the game's already pretty easy to begin with. I mean, playing on normal difficulties maybe be different on harder ones, but like a lot of the time like they make it so like the more specialized builds are just a lot slower, and you don't feel as in control of them. Like you're the one doing the things. Like when you pull the trigger and shoot a guy, I feel like you did that. When you like hit a guy with a sword, in Dark Souls, you feel like you did that. But if you're like in Dark Souls, and you just like shoot, a soul arrow, you're just like standing in a spot and then you just like watch it track them and hits them. Sometimes it doesn't hit them, and you really have no control over that. So it just feels like less immediate, and kind of takes away some of the, the satisfaction that I look for in games. And that's not everyone's speed, obviously, but for me, it's like feeling like I did the thing. That like my inputs are the one, that contributed to what happened. So I think that's why I usually more lean toward, melee builds, swords, axes, whatever, and that's why like in God of War, with all the weapons, I like the axe the most, because it's the one that you feel really the most when you're going at an enemy.
Right.
It's just a sexy weapon too. It's hard not to become really attached to the Leviathan axe.
Yeah,
very true.
I ended up using the spear a lot more than I thought I would.
Well, don't spoil too much. I don't think Blake's gotten.
I'm not. I've since like last a week and a half ago. Life has been happening. I'll just say that, and I have not been able to dedicate as much gaming time. Also, I made the unwise decision of buying Baldur's Gate 3, so I'm just like, this is awesome right now. But I'm thinking, gotta get back to God of War. It's still there. You need to finish it.
Honestly, I think playing through God of War first, like you'll be able to complete it much quicker than you probably will Baldur's Gate.
Oh yeah.
At the rate that I play those types of games, like ooh, what's that? Ooh, what's that? Ooh, oh, okay. Oh shit, that didn't work out for me. Well, I saved 5 minutes ago. Let me do this again. So
that game
I don't.
100% completionist's nightmare. Like not nightmare necessarily, but it's not gonna be something you can finish, in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
Right.
But like that's how Claire plays. My wife, she just like I said, she's played longer than me in Baldur's Gate, but she's in Act 1, and I'm in Act 3. Like that's just like how much she like scours, the earth.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, teach their own, like how they like to play.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to like really dedicate, the time to play a game like Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, and so, but that being said, though, one thing that I really like about God of War is that it's fairly linear. There's not a lot of extra stuff to do so far. So that's good. Yeah.
It's there if you want it.
Right, yeah,
It's not
exactly.
necessary.
Yeah, because
what?
yeah, like, sorry, go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
No, finish, Blake.
Um, uh, I killed the dragon, at least the first one. That's where I stopped so far. So I'm still a long ways to go.
Mhm.
And it's like it's super fun. That dragon fight was really cool, by the way. It was really fun. I enjoyed it so much. And then like at another point, I gotta go like in what the heck is it? The mines. Like I have two options to do something. Like go in the mines and help one of the dwarves, I think. Help him out and that sort of stuff. But honestly, I'm just gonna stick with the main story with this one because I want to get to 2 because I know
It's a
2 is really good.
It's a viable path in that game, and I love the new God of War structures because it's got like that sort of semi-open world, you could say, structure that lets you do things pretty linearly if you want to, but gives you some little diversions, if you want to, and they're not like obnoxious about it. And I think it's a really like ideal structure. Like, because I'm not a biggest fan of the current open world structure, outside of games like the new Zelda games and Elden Ring, because they're just so quantity over quality. But basically all the little quests you can do in God of War and God of War Ragnarok are all pretty high quality, and there's not that many.
That's where
of
some of the
them.
best content is.
Quality over quantity. Yeah, a lot of it's really great, and you can definitely go back and do it after you finish the main quest too. Like none of them are like locked off from you if you don't do it at the time. I think I could be wrong because I usually do them all, but it's a kind of game that actually makes me want to do them all.
Right.
And now I can't say that about a lot of games.
Yeah, the quality or quantity over quality is I think
That's a Ubisoft thing.
we can all agree that. I was just gonna say we can all agree that's a Ubisoft thing. And you mentioned like the semi-open world stuff, Joe, is like there are games out, like I don't know, have any of you played Sea of Thieves before? Have you played that? It's
I tried. I ended up getting a boat that you have to pilot with multiple people, and I crashed it after like 20 minutes of trying to find one, and I circled the island. I basically crashed and ended up back on the same island I was at after like half an hour or so. So I was like, I'm good.
Oh my god.
was it a galleon?
I think it
Was it the big
was
one?
like I just found a ship. I'm like, all right, let's go. And then it's like, oh, you need all these. You need more people. And so I ended up just crashing into something. I swam back right to where I was, and I was like, well, that's it. I'm good.
Yeah, that's a game you definitely have to play with friends, or if you want to play with randos, that's like fine. And
How
there's
many
a
people
Discord
can play
group that I
Sea
was
of
in for a
Thieves
while.
by chance? Because I would think that'd be a cool game
4.
for maybe us to play at some point. If there's, I'm not sure how many people can play, but
On Game Pass, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on Game Pass. I'm pretty sure it is actually. I mean, but either way, as to the best of my knowledge, there's only 4 people allowed in the party so far.
yeah.
But the really nice thing though is that a couple of months ago, the developers finally released PvE, because the entire time it was PvP. And people are assholes, so you'd be getting all this loot and you're like, great, this is awesome. And then you go into like a cave to like go get some treasure, and then all of a sudden someone is burning your ship and you see everything like just burn. It sucks when that happens. But anyway,
They just come up and gank you.
yeah, basically, or they steal your stuff, but
Because pirates.
There's a pirates. Yeah, I was just gonna say, pirates.
Pirate.
But anyway, what the point I was trying to make though is that that's an open world game, and it's absolutely, and I think that's quality over quantity in that case, despite being an open world game. And yeah, man, that like the stuff, like I tried playing Far Cry 6. I tried playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Oh, that's a nightmare.
Yeah, yeah. What was the other one that before the Odyssey? I tried playing that. You know,
Yeah,
like if it was
Odyssey's the one
not.
I played a lot of, and just no. I
Yeah.
lost interest after about 20 hours. And just like, it's just gonna be this.
Yeah,
the whole
yeah,
way
exactly.
through.
Yeah, I got to like probably 15 or 18 hours, and I was like, "What am I doing?" Because this game is massive. So, yeah, that's that sort of
It's too
stuff.
much.
Mhm.
It's like
Yeah.
when remember when Horizon Zero Dawn came out, and
yeah.
you know, it got pretty good reviews. I played it, and I was like, this is pretty neat. You know, it's just like your standard open world game with a pretty neat concept. You know, it's really pretty. And then Breath of the Wild came out like less than a week after it did, and just playing it,
jeez.
yeah, did not help it at all. And
Game over.
just I tried going back to it after playing Breath of the Wild for like 100 hours, and I'm just like, this feels so limited and repetitive, and like I can't like go anywhere I actually want to, and it just like, you know, it felt like going from, you know, the ocean to a swimming pool. It really was just like such a eye-opener to like what that genre could be, and just like from that moment I'm just like, oh, I just don't think I like these kinds of games, you know.
It's like going from the.
And I'm not even the biggest Breath of the Wild
world.
fan or Tears of the Kingdom fan. I like those games a lot. I think they're really great, but they still have their own issues. But we'll probably talk about another time. You know, if we ever talk about the Zelda games, but
We'll do the Zelda games at some point for
yeah,
sure.
oh yeah, definitely.
We should.
Definitely.
I fired up Wind Waker a few days ago. Like,
Yes.
it was awesome when I
Wind Waker's the bomb. Whenever you're a pirate, it's always a great time. Like 9 times out of 10. Like that's why Assassin's Creed Black Flag was one of the best.
Oh my God.
Assassin's Creed, one of the final Assassin's Creed games that was actually good.
It's so good. That game is, yeah. Well, is that
go back and play?
It's really good. And isn't that the one that ends the Desmond timeline?
Sorry, guys.
3 is.
Okay, Raj.
Okay, 3 is. Gotcha. No worries, Raj. All good.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Hello. How you doing?
Hello.
You okay?
Yeah,
So
no,
with
no.
Raj back.
The ED just puts me on hold when I call right away. It's just annoying.
Oh,
Like I love that.
that's nice.
So with Raj back, do you guys just want to get into the topic of the day?
Sure.
Go for it. I didn't play any games, so we can go for it.
All right. Well,
So
into
today-
The Last of Us.
Yeah, The Last of Us, now called The Last of Us Part 1, A New Hope.
Special edition.
And Knuckles.
Wait,
The
I thought we were
Last of Us
talking about
Part
The
1
Walking Dead.
and Knuckles.
And Knuckles.
I had to mute my mic real quick because coughing.
Adventures.
Got him.
That was good.
Oh my god. So yeah, the classic 2013, also 2022, if we're going off the PS5 version.
So 2022.
You can also say 2014.
What the hell?
Oh,
is
and
Knuckles
2014,
And
classic.
2023 if you want to get into the show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They keep
This
on
is
giving.
why none of us have ever grown up, because they keep re-releasing we're in a time loop. They keep re-releasing the same damn games.
We're
every
infinitely
year,
23 when this game came out.
and nobody likes us.
Who bought it at launch? Did anyone buy it at launch?
I was like at launch, but pretty close to it, like
think I
in
did.
like the first few months.
I hopped on that shit with Mr. Wood over there, and
Nice.
that was,
Did you
That
buy
was
it
a
from
very
Danny?
expensive. It was maybe, I don't know. Were you still in Bowling Green? Joe?
No. I was
No? Okay.
I was living in 2013, right?
Yeah, you'd
That
have
was,
graduated the
yeah.
year before.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I was living in Columbus.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a very expensive day for me because I bought 2 of the post-pandemic editions, one for me and one for Crystal, and
Oh,
We're
nice.
shadowing.
it was wonderful. We still have the statues. I should bring them out. I should bring everything I have out and just
Yes,
show
please.
everything.
Yeah, please, yeah. It'd be
I'll be
fun.
back.
Bring it out.
Yeah.
It's the game with Rick Grimes, right? And all that.
Yeah, dude.
I've seen
Yeah.
it. I've watched most of the show.
What's Carl?
Coral.
Coral.
Yeah, that was the thing I thought. Like when I saw ads for the game, I was there. It is. Yeah. I have mine in the next room, next door, but too lazy to get up and get it. But yeah, I saw the ads for this, and I was like, "What is this?" This is like I was a huge Walking Dead fan at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and I just thought, "Oh, it's like this Walking Dead ripoff," that's not called The Walking Dead and stuff like that. And since that's happened, I've changed my tune drastically. In fact, it's like flipped basically.
I didn't know The
And-
Walking Dead like went on till like last year. Like that's
Oh,
fucking
yeah.
It just
Yeah,
it just
it-
kept going.
Yeah.
It didn't like-
was-
Okay.
It was
Sure.
like a certain creature. I can't think of what it's called, but it's like dead, but it keeps on going. Name is slipping my
Alright,
tongue.
so let's see here. We have
That's good.
number one
Nice.
edition. We
How many
have
versions of The Last of Us do you have, Danny? I'm afraid to ask.
2
Oh my god.
and 3.
Okay.
But and
Only
this is
3?
kind of special. For Christmas a few years ago, one of our friends got Crystal a special limited edition signed box that has Ashley Johnson's signature autograph on it.
Oh, that's so
cool.
Yeah. So we got that, and then
Very
a
cool.
piece de resistance is
Nice.
Oh, look at that.
That's very
this is
cool.
was one of the most expensive collector's editions to find, like way after it came out. We had 2 of them,
Oh, I bet.
but because we moved in, got married, and everything, we decided to consolidate. So I sold one of them to someone on the Last of Us subreddit who was trying to find the collector's edition. I was like, I'm not going to be one of those jerks who like inflates the price to like $500. I'm like, I'll give it to you for around what I paid for it. So sent him that. It came with like the first like comic issue of American Dream or whatever it was with Ellie and Riley. So
Nice.
yeah. I'm gonna go put this back really quick because I'm pretty sure if we get to the second game by the end of this, I'll have to bring out the second statue too. So be right back.
Do it.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Did you guys
That's
ever
really
play
cool.
the one? It's like the one game from In Between where you're playing as Ellie and her one friend.
Left
yeah,
behind.
Left behind. Mhm.
Yeah.
Never,
Hey,
never,
yeah.
never
Yeah.
played the DLC.
It's
Oh, you
really
didn't?
it's
Nope.
really good. They
Oh,
they
shit.
tell you like you do not play this unless you have finished the main game.
Yeah.
Like,
Or at
do
least
not
kind to a
play
certain
this.
point, because it actually comes at a if you play it at a certain point, it actually is the ideal time. It's
Yeah,
it's like right at the beginning of the winter segment. I think you're
Yes.
supposed to go and play that.
Mm.
Like, that's
Yeah, you-
usually the way I do it every time I replay the first game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last time I replayed the game, that's exactly what I did, and it felt so natural too. It was really
Yeah.
nice.
That's like where it happens in the show too. Is like
Mhm.
is like right at that segment. It's like right after, Joel gets hurt, and that's when the flashback happens in the show, and that's when you're supposed to play it. When you're playing the game, I feel
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
kind of out of order, but it's where it happens most naturally. Like
Yeah.
said.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, Joe, if you get around to playing that game, the remastered version.
Mhm.
So I think that's the only one that you can get nowadays without like, trying to find a disc, a physical copy of the original
Yeah.
ones.
Part one is it's definitely a worthwhile. I don't know if this is the first time I've pimped them before, but GameFly, that was like the perfect GameFly game, to get, because I've already bought it. I don't want to pay another $70 for a game that I already have and do really love, but
Yeah.
I was like, might as well get the most out of this subscription. So
Yeah.
that was
Keep doing that so we can get a sponsor.
exactly GameFly. Hit us up. I know you're hurting. I'm like your only customer. I'm pretty sure. Every time I ask for a game that's not there, I know you're just lying. You're just keeping it in the back in your warehouse.
It's for the employees.
Yeah, it's an employee copy.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure we're all pretty much in agreement. The original Last of Us is fantastic. Am I wrong?
Absolutely,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't
I
buy
thought
it.
Gut punch of an opening, and that just carries throughout the entire
Yeah.
rest of the game. Like,
It definitely set the bar high for the genre. Like,
Yeah.
like I don't remember playing a game like The Last of Us, and not just like the zombie or monster genre or whatever, but just the presentation. Oh man, it was just so. It felt like I was in a movie, but like the gameplay was just phenomenal. Like it hit on every aspect. It hit, and it was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't buy this game at launch or shortly after launch. It was actually, I didn't have a PS3 at the time, and I bought my PS3 shortly before the PS4 came out, actually.
Okay.
And
good time to buy it.
well, what happened was I went to GameStop, and Danny, maybe you sold it to me. Actually, I don't know. I'm sure I still have the receipt. But I got the PS3 Last of Us edition. Like,
Okay.
It just came with the game, you know. And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. All right, maybe I'll play this game, The Last of Us. Yeah, I remember seeing the commercials. I was like, yeah, let me play it for, I don't know what I was playing at the time, but I finally said, yeah, let me go try this game out. And man, I can't even tell you the last time, or the time before that, I was like that drawn in by a game. And I just could not put it down. Like, absolutely could not put it down. And yeah, like Raj said, I mean, it felt like you were in a movie, basically. It was...
Like, previous games had done close to that, but like Naughty Dog had kind of set the bar pretty high already with like the Uncharted games in terms of, kind of feeling like a movie. And then like with The Last of Us, because it wasn't just like it having a good story or good voice acting, it was also like the way it was presented. Like, when you like obviously we all love like Mass Effect and Metal Gear Solid, but they're not really filmed, like their cutscenes are not really filmed like movies, especially like Mass Effect, just kind of like shot, reverse shot, and everyone's kind of static and robotic. But in The Last of Us, it's like all so natural and like films like an actual professional filmmaker had made it. And like to this day, like a lot of games still can't do that the way Naughty Dog were able to do in The Last of Us, and then later with 2, to really make just to bring that just that authenticity to the proceedings. So I don't know how it's been 11 years and there's still games where like the characters are just like ma, 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 like fucking Starfield again. Sorry. Once a video dissing on Starfield.
Yeah.
but it's crazy that so many just can't get it right.
Man, just to say about Starfield, I was watching my brother play it, and God, it looks like such a garbage game. It's so terrible. I played a little bit of it. I'm like, what the f is this game? Like,
we have to have entered a time
empty-ass
code in all our
world.
videos now of like, here's where they make fun of
We have to
Starfield.
have a little like one of those boards like they have at like warehouses.
Starfield.
It's been 0 days since Joe has dissed Starfield.
That... Fraser, that's
There
what
we
I'm
go.
putting
Put it right behind you, Blake, and that's
putting
right,
right
there.
That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm getting a board tomorrow from like Target or something, and that's what I'm putting there.
Man, I
been 4
was so
podcasts since he's
disappointed how
dissed.
empty that game feels. Like,
But that's
people
that's
are
the whole,
all
that's the
around
whole,
me.
that's the whole point, right? So you're exploring the
No,
universe.
I'm in
You
towns.
think-
Like people are around me, and I'm like, why do I feel so empty? Like this game just feels so empty. These mindless people are just like walking around with the same facial expressions, and it's just so stupid.
It's like real life. You walk around town, you're lonely there.
Yeah, but games are supposed to take you out from real life, and I'm like, damn,
Yeah, exactly.
I see enough of this in real life. Fuck this.
Yeah. Fuck that.
I have marked down 4218 Starfield. LOL.
I can't wait till one day we actually have a full Starfield discussion.
The board he just takes the board off and just chucks it.
Yeah.
Well,
One thing, going back to The Last of Us,
Yeah.
thank you Starfield for being such a good sport. But going back to The Last of Us, I will say personally, I'm not as big on the gameplay of The Last of Us. I think it's good. It's not bad by any means. You know, it's not my kind of game. You know, with a game like Uncharted, you know, the core mechanics themselves are not all that good, and on paper, but it's the spectacle of it and the set pieces and all these things that make a game like that super fun. So The Last of Us kind of has to rely a lot more on its core gameplay, which again is fine, and it's like maybe, you know, for me, like 7 out of 10, you know, gameplay, nothing terrible, nothing great. But it's everything else. It's, you know, it's the world you're in, the characters you're playing as, and of course the story at the center of it, that make it so you're like, yeah, this gameplay is, you know, to me at least, not that great, but everything else around it is so good that it drives me to keep going, and it just kind of elevates it, you know, from where it would be otherwise, at least for me.
Yeah.
I can kind of see that. I mean, having beaten it to death, you know, you do get to a point where it's like you're starting to just feel that like everything, you're just like exhausted by it, just because you know, with everything that you're doing. But it's definitely the characters, the story, and everything that they're telling that carries you through beginning to end. Like,
yeah,
there's times where you don't, like, I don't even think I'm just playing the game. I'm like, actually, like, you know, I'm going to the next place to, you know, get to that next part of the story or what have you. So it's, I don't know, I guess I'm kind of in that mindset where it's just like, I'm not even thinking about playing. Like, I'm not playing the game. I'm going through this section and getting to that next part of the story or that next character.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I, having played like all of them, and I'll get to the multiplayer maybe when we get to the end of the video, because I did put a lot of time into the multiplayer, and I think that's what kind of amps up the gameplay and brings it to the front, and it makes it really good. I don't know. I find it really hard to talk about The Last of Us, just because even as much as I love it, as much as I played it, I feel like I don't know how much more I can say about it that hasn't been said.
I can't
Like,
say I played any
everyone knows what The Last of Us is.
Yeah.
I could, you know, gush about how many times, like every time I play through the opening of that game, there's a 0% chance that I'm gonna not walk away from it without crying or getting tears in my eyes. 0% chance.
Yeah.
Or just constantly like just
before that-
emotional at the. Say again, Joe?
I was gonna say, like, I don't think there had been many scenes in games, period, like the opening of The Last of Us.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and then, you know, the very end of everything, just like that sense of anxiety and urgency that you feel when you're, you know, you wake up after you get to the Firefly base and everything gets set in motion. Like, you just, you know, you basically feel what Joel's feeling. It, like, at least most people do. I know that the whole ending and the Joel's decision is a very hot topic.
We'll have a big
a
discussion
lot of
about
people.
that, I feel.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, but like for me, it's just like you feel that same like sense of just like I'm coming for you, and like you know, at least when I was playing, like, you know, on the not everything but grounded mode, I was playing very hostile and like very aggressively in that point, just because, like, you know, I wanted to get to that. I wanted to save Ellie.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because we're talking about the gameplay a little bit right now. That and going with Danny with what you said about playing aggressively, I was the opposite, and I usually play that game very stealth-like, because at this point the gameplay is dated. You know, it's not awful by any stretch, but it is a little bit dated. But I think it's great that you can play it like not quietly, but you can move around quietly. You can essentially, plan your routes on the way where you want to go, with how the enemies are walking around and stuff like that. So it has diversity within the gameplay. Is what I'm trying to say.
It's just a real testament to how like much it just gets you by the balls and just takes you into that game, is because like most of the time you want to be stealthy, you want to sneak around and not get into conflicts until the game has to game, and it's like, well, you gotta go through the combat sequence, but like when you get to the very end, you're like, no, I'm going to murder all of you to get Ellie back.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Come hell or high water, she's not dying.
Yes. Grounded mode was a little harder because there's so much of that. Like, I remember I got to a point where I was like, I had basically, I think, 1 round of a revolver and a brick and a bottle nearby. That was all I had. I think it was the dam.
Oh my.
Which was worse because like when you get outside to the dam, like it immediately opens up and there's a dude with a sniper rifle. So it's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Against the guy with a sniper, I would just chuck the brick and just, send some thoughts and prayers, or what? Like, it was such a pain in the ass. And then there's certain segments where, you have to learn like how the game registers, like when encounters start. Like, I think it was with Sam and Henry, when you get to that abandoned town, and then the clickers and everyone all start. No, you have to go to that house where that sniper is. Like, there's a part where, like, if you run to a certain place, it, like, no matter what you do, it automatically triggers people coming out to get you. So, like, I had to, like, run forward to activate the encounter, run back, hide, and then, like, move around them once they all, like, kind of walked away and everything like that. So there's parts of that game where it's, like, very scripted in a specific way. So, like, you can kind of, like, game the system. There's even stuff you can do in the very last part of with the Firefly Hospital, where you can like throw a couple smoke bombs down and just run right to the door and just kind of negate that entire section, which
really?
I felt like I had to do in that last level because it was so difficult, like getting through that hospital with almost no resources.
Right. Yeah, at that point in the hospital, like I'm fully loaded with things. Like I've got all the Molotovs, I got all the bombs. Yeah, all the smoke bombs also. So it's like, yeah, come. I got the flamethrower too. It's like, come get me, boys. All right.
Yeah.
Come at me, bro.
It's one element of the gameplay that's just kind of a nitpick, but it still kind of really gets to me, is the fact that when you're playing as Joel, when you get those shivs, they're degradable. They fucking, you have to craft them. Find all these different parts, and it takes you like 40 minutes to just find enough to make one fucking shiv that you're gonna waste on one goddamn clicker. And then
or a door.
Fucking Ellie has her invincible knife that just doesn't degrade whatsoever. I'm like, why aren't you sharing that with Joel? Because you're just walking
hey,
around.
Man, those
right
Italian
now.
Stilettos are built different. And it's hers. She's not going to give it to Joel. It's
You'd think
hers.
out of all the guys that Joel has killed, he would have like lifted a knife from one of them or something sharp.
Yeah.
No,
Or just borrowed the knife from fucking Ellie. Like, she has said that thing the whole goddamn time.
Well,
And it's like either make it so Ellie has to craft ships too, or make it so Joel has an endless knife. Just it's such a weird contrast between the two that was unnecessary.
Question. I'm working off a fuzzy memory here, but does Ellie's knife actually kill people, or does it act as more?
Oh, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an
Yeah,
instant
she
kill.
should
Like,
have
if you
people
get
with it.
you go behind an enemy, they are absolutely dead. So it is
I will
no
say,
different
though,
than the shivs.
Stabbing people in the neck is definitely less, you're less likely to break your knife in the neck of someone than you are shoving it into a keyhole
Also
or
true.
a drawer.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I get what you're saying, though. There could have
I
been
also-
another way to, do
Another
that.
major complaint I have is that, the game is obviously, doesn't want you to do a lot of stealth, especially if you're on the higher difficulties. But the first one especially, I think, does force you into too many combat situations. Like when I replayed it on the first game. The second one I actually think gives you more opportunities to be stealthy
Yes,
always.
absolutely.
Which is why I like the second one's gameplay a lot more than the first one. But there are just so many segments where just like something happens like in the scene where it's like, well, fuck, this ruins my whole day, you know, and you have to.
Well, usually
you know,
it's
do
like a
it
point
gameplay
where
style.
up to the last enemy, you're like strangling them, but then like, oh, we need to get you into the next combat sequence. Even though you've been so stealthy, you're gonna do the loud takedown animation where Joel just like grabs him by the head and just knees him in the face. It's like, well, that alerted everyone. Here comes the guards. Sound the alarm. Yeah, I totally get that. My biggest issue with it is, of course, the ladders and dumpsters. All the
God,
and the pallets, which I get because they were using that as kind of a segment. You know, a lot of those instances it was to hide loading screens, and you know, same thing like when you're going through walls and like things like that. But which I am glad because in like part 1 they made it so that you can skip those automatically. Like those puzzles, they'll just do it for you, which is nice. But yeah, that was probably my least favorite part of the game. Which just, you know, because you weren't doing anything really.
It's busy.
It wasn't like an actual puzzle. Like you could say on chart, like people say like the puzzles are too easy and everything. They spell everything out for you, but at least it still kind of engages you in a way that's just more like walk, pick up, walk, drop.
No, for sure.
But
yeah, gameplay, overall it's pretty good. You know, it's solid to me. You know, it's not like Alan Wake where it's like I think the gameplay actually kind of fucking sucks, and the story's pretty good. It's like no, the gameplay's pretty good, and the story is amazing. You know, one of the best, arguably the best story from a single video game ever. You know, and with one of, if not the greatest ending in a video game ever.
Oh yes.
Any last thoughts on the gameplay before we go into more spoilery story talk about the first game?
Just
Not
one
about
thing.
gameplay, but did it win Game of the Year?
Oh yeah, unanimously.
The Game Awards wasn't around yet at the time, but for the most part, it won most like Game of the Year awards from like.
I think Grand Theft Auto was like its main competition that year, if I'm not mistaken.
Was Spike TV still around? Because I know they did a Game Awards yearly.
It was.
I think
It
it
was. Yeah.
The
It was one of the
Spike
last
TV Awards
years.
were actually they're connected to the Game Awards. Like Jeff Keighley was involved in both. Yeah.
Oh.
He just like rebranded it because Spike TV is very much a 2000s thing. And
Yeah. Spike TV.
they wanted to make it less bro-y, less douchebag.
Yeah.
Mountain Dew, Doritos, like adjacent.
Yeah.
Game fuel, man.
I will say my favorite weapon from the game has to be the board with the pair of scissors sticking out of it.
Dude, yeah.
And it never gets old. Just cracking someone in the neck with that thing and just chucking them to the
Yeah,
ground.
you just swing and they're done. That's a one insta kill.
It never gets old.
Yeah. Yeah, you just
You pop out from behind like a barrier.
So, there was the Spike Game Awards. The last show it did was in 2012. But in 2013, it was renamed for the final time to VGX, which was, it looks like it was done on Spike TV, I think.
Gotcha.
And then, so yeah, it did get, yeah, that was the year it actually lost to Grand Theft Auto 5. But it won basically every other category that it was nominated in. Like, Studio of the Year went to Naughty Dog. Wow, they didn't even have anyone on there for Character of the Year. Best Action Adventure, or no, it didn't win Best Action Adventure Game either. Jesus. Oh, Best PlayStation Game, which that goes without saying. It took the both best.
I think you could say that to this
characters. Day. Yeah, Best Voice Actor, Best Voice Actress. But yeah, like that was the year where like BioShock Infinite came out, Grand Theft Auto 5 came out. Tomb Raider, the reboot.
Yep.
So like it was they had a pretty good good amount of games that year.
Yeah.
But
I remember GameSpot gave game of the year to a different game that year, which is actually my game of the year from that year, and that's The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. You guys know I'm more of a gameplay first guy, but like as a story and an emotional experience, you really don't get any better than The Last of Us.
Yeah, that was a
like, I'll
tough year
never
with.
be able to...
Yeah.
It was a
All
good
those
year,
good games.
underrated year, I feel.
Mm-hmm. What were you saying, Blake?
Yeah, like I'll never. I'll just say that with that game, like how much it, yeah, like I said earlier, just how much it pulled me in. Like I wanted to know more about their story and like Joel and Ellie, and I wanted to know what they were doing after the ending. Which, oh my god, I remember when that ending came up. We talked about that, but I was like, but. You're just gonna leave me like that now? Come on!
It was perfect. Like, and we'll get into that. I'm pretty sure that's what
no,
we're
it
gonna
was.
get into next.
It absolutely was. Like that ending was perfect. But man, it was a tearjerker. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really was. Like, yeah. Not many times have I had an emotional reaction from video games. Like I've said in the past, but yeah, that one definitely hit me.
What about the game was so emotional?
Well, I guess we're gonna get into spoilers now.
I guess so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you haven't played this 10-year-old video game that's been released, 3 times in total, skip ahead to whatever section that we stopped talking about it, I guess.
Look at the time codes.
Yeah, look at the time
Yeah.
codes. It'll be
Time
easy.
codes.
The time code that says totally not spoilers. Click on that. No, but yeah. Go ahead.
Go, Blake.
Yeah, so for me, what I found so emotional about, or what made me so emotional about it was, I mean, the surface thing that you could say is like the story and the character development, but it just, for me, it felt like you really got to see 2 characters come together. They were very, very different, and even towards the end of the game, they still had their sort of clashing of personalities a little bit, obviously because of the age difference and Joel remembering the time before all the world went to hell and all that good stuff, and but Ellie was born into it, so she's like, I don't know, I'm sorry I'm being a dick, but this is what I live in, this is what I know. But really it was just seeing those 2 characters come together and slowly form like the relationship that they built. It felt very natural. That's what it was. It felt very natural to me. Nothing felt forced. Everyone likes to reference, the scene where Ellie's like talking to Joel, in when she runs off, and they're she's brings
The
up
abandoned
Sarah.
ranch.
Yeah, the abandoned ranch part. Everyone brings that up, but I mean, I feel like it's brought up often because that is the moment where their relationship takes a turn, and you see it on their faces. Maybe not so much on Joel's face. I think because that's just who he is. So later on, when Joel gets hurt, I mean, yeah, my jaw dropped. I thought, oh shit, that's not good. And then that wonderful surprise of being able to play as Ellie, because again, I lived under a rock apparently for this when this game came out and everything like that. And really, the thing that I will say, the thing that 100% got me the most was the ending, obviously, but it was Joel's decision to make a very conscious decision to say, nothing. We tried looking for a cure. The Firefly said there's nothing, so you're free to go. Because as far as I was concerned, Ellie pretty much made the choice to willingly go in and she didn't know what was going to happen to her, like that she was going to get killed from the operation. So she didn't have that decision, but she did willingly make the choice to, let me go and do it. It's a very selfless act, basically.
Yeah.
It's a very selfless act, under false pretenses, because Marlene, she wasn't going to say that to her. But I don't know. I think that Ellie probably. I don't like going into talking about characters like this because, I mean, literally, it just takes someone on the writing staff and getting an approval to make like a decision for the character to expand. But I do feel like had Ellie known all the facts, she probably would have made the decision like, yeah, let me try it, let me do it. So all those thoughts were going through my head, and Joel is very selfish. He
Would
made a
you
very
have made the same decision?
Right, exactly. Yeah. I don't know if I could answer that honestly.
That's where the game's brilliant. It's that
and
that
it's also one of those. It's one of those things where you can just imagine, like, until you probably have a kid yourself, it's hard to imagine like going through a decision like that. But at the same time, when you think about it, it's really not a hard decision in the very end.
I'd forsake the whole world for my fucking dog. Like that. That goes without fucking saying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'd feel less about my actual child whenever they're born.
Still let them watch this.
for me, with The Last of Us, I think why it was so impactful was because, as someone who, went to school for creative writing and wants to be that, I had a pretty good idea of like what to expect from this story. I was very much like, okay, I know what's gonna happen. It's gonna be a fucking Children of Men sort of situation where, this jaded, cynical guy, he's sad about his daughter dying, which obviously was tragic, is going to, meet this spunky girl, and they're going to, hate each other at first, but then really grow to care about each other, and it's going to be like, they're really good friends and everything, and eventually one of them is going to die or sacrifice themselves for the other one, and probably him, just like with the Walking Dead game from the year earlier, and she's going to go on to help cure the world. Seemed pretty straightforward, and that is absolutely not where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And
thought
their relationship becomes so much more intense than you anticipate it being. Not just her becoming a surrogate daughter, but basically the only thing keeping him tied to humanity. It's like the one thing making him human. And I think that now is when we can also talk a little bit about the show. And I do think this is my biggest problem with the show. And no offense to Pedro Pascal, I think he's a really good actor, and I think he does a good job in the show. But Joel in the game is such a terrifying force of nature. Like, this dude, like, so many moments in that game just give me chills. Like, I recently had to watch the scene where he's torturing the guy in the winter act, or the two guys, to find out where Ellie is. And if you compare that side by side with the show, and like Pedro Pascal, and he's doing a good job, he's fine, but he's like this kind of like short little guy, and everything he does just feels kind of like acting. And I know it's like a lot of CGI and with the game and everything like that, base model. It's not really Troy Baker's face and everything, as much as he's doing the acting. But Joel in that scene is just so chilling and so scary, and like you never really played as a character like that in a game before, and that's part of the reason for me, at least, why Joel is probably the best. It's like pretty close between him and Arthur Morgan as far as like I think like the best written and performed video game characters I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And just like even fast forwarding to the ending a little bit with the difference between Joel in the game and Joel in the show is that the final scene when you hear Joel say, when Ellie asks him, swear to me that everything that you said about the Fireflies is true. When he says it in the show, he's just like, I swear. Like, it's like so weak and so wimpy. And then in the game, you just like you know it, like you know he's lying to her, but the way he says it, like, I swear, I can't even imitate it. It's so perfectly said.
And I think like the way they captured it too, because like you see him like kind of like stand up straight and just look like take a deep breath and like look her dead in the eye and then deliver the line. Also, like, yeah, like it's there's a bunch of so many little details in the game that just like made every scene just that much better. Because I agree with you, Joe. The delivery in the show wasn't nearly. I mean, maybe it could also just be because I had played through it so many times that like I knew it was coming, so I wasn't like hit with it. The same way I was when I played the game. But I do agree that the delivery in the game was much better. Like, it's chilling.
Probably the single best line delivery of a 2-word sentence, like in a single in a video game that I can think of. God damn. And like every time, like if I know it, because I was like waiting for it, and when he said it in the show, I was like, oh, that's it. And I was like, it's still good. It's still a really good scene. It's still really well shot, and they still have the same music cue at the end. And overall, I think the show is fantastic. But that's probably my biggest problem with it, along with the whole ending episode feeling a bit rushed and not really, I feel it like living up to the way you felt in the game during that scene. Yeah. Like when he takes on the Fireflies.
I honestly, as much as I do feel the final episode could have been a little longer, it was one of those things where, because there's so much game in the game, like there's so much stuff that you can like remove and cut out, and in order to make the pace a little more, keep up the pace and everything like that. But for me, I just felt like it was brutal. Like there's a little moment where you're watching this and like having played the game, you're like, I don't care who it is. Like I almost started to like feel for the people that Joel was murdering. But I was like, nope, you gotta push that shit down. You know why he's doing this. It was
obviously the show overall has. Oh, go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say it's more raw and emotional, like the whole ending, like leading up to the final series of events. It was also kind of scary, just like the cold, calculating way that Joel just murdered everyone. Or like the one where he shoots that one guy and he runs out, so he just like the just dead psychopath face, he just pulls out Ellie's knife and just murders the dude. Like it was terrifying.
I hated the way it was shot in the final episode. Like I hated that it was like kind of like a montage. Like I feel like this is where the show could have like pulled out its, like I mean it could be seen as a little video gamey, but if that had been done as like a one take scene, I feel like it would have just like really made you feel like more in it. And there have been like obviously like lots of like action one takes like in Children of Men that have obviously worked really well and doesn't feel gimmicky or anything. And I think that's what that scene needed to really kind of capture that the feeling that you had in the game, as he's going through, and also not playing like cheesy obvious music like they were in the show either. Like,
really?
Just have him go through. All you hear is Like
I really like that they chose the music when you like from the game. When you're carrying Ellie through and escaping, using that track.
That part was fine. That's fine. But I mean, like when he was getting to her, like I feel like it just being like the sounds of gunfire and people screaming.
Oh, okay.
I think that.
Okay, I thought you were talking about the music. I'm sorry.
No, not totally. I should have explained that better. No, I was talking about like during the montage where it's just like showing him going like.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's a lot of like it was done in silence sort of thing with just the music playing. Okay, I see what you're saying.
I think that section, like it only has the weight, the impact that section has in the TV show really only works. It only carries the weight if you played the game. You know, because if you just saw it just as is, we're like, okay, he's going around, you know. But because, you know, you play in the game and you have to go through all of this stuff, you know, just to get to her, the sense of urgency was not there for me. Getting there. So
yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that there's a lot of scenes in the show that were done, I don't say necessarily better, but better for the medium, you know, that they were they were going for. And overall, I mean, one of the most faithful adaptations of any video game ever, probably. I mean, if not the most faithful. You know, because I mean, they already had a story that we've all basically said was pretty much perfect, and you know, why change too much about it? And the one thing that they changed that was pretty significant, they was absolutely for the better, and that was obviously what they did with Bill. So
I will also, before we get into that, I also want to say that the content or what they added regarding the infection, the opening 2-3 minutes of that show are some of the best writing and just the most chilling, haunting work I've experienced. It was so
I wish
dry.
they had done that with every episode. Like, I loved those scenes.
Yeah, they're some of my favorites.
It was weird that they did it only in the first couple episodes, and then it just kind of stopped.
Well, I think it was because once they got the point across about where the infection came from, how it spreads, and you know, how it mutates everyone, how it functions, it kind of didn't really have anywhere else to go after that, really. So I think keeping it in those couple of episodes and then just leaving the rest to, you know, for us to experience along with the characters, I think was totally fine. I thought it was kind of genius how they implemented it. And I also want to say whoever added the tendrils coming out of the mouths of the infected is that person deserves a fucking raise, because that stuff was terrifying and gross.
So creepy.
The only problem I have with that, though, is probably in my opinion, the worst scene in the whole show. The only change that they made that I thought was genuinely bad was Tessa's death compared to the game. In the game, it's a lot more, I don't know, it felt like a lot more heroic. You know, it was a bit more brutal, but to have her have the weird zombie mouth raper, basically, it was just so uncomfortable.
So that was another thing that people were talking about, because you know, the way the infection, it sounds like the way the infection kind of gets into you, if you're infected, it slowly starts
they got rid
to
of the
spores.
spores.
And it's a hive mind, and they did that obviously for medium purposes, because you know, they wanted to see everyone's face. You know, they didn't want to do that, but I think the way they changed it to this giant hive mind really made it work and made it even more you know, kind of feel real. And
I like
scary.
that. I don't think they expanded enough on it, because it was brought up in the second episode, and then I don't think it ever really came up too much again. I think maybe it popped up in the climactic moment of the 5th episode, if I'm not wrong.
I think so. Yes, those were kind of the two big moments where they kind of brought that up, and I have a feeling they could probably go even further with it in the next one, especially since even more time has passed. I think they can go even take it in more interesting directions.
Yeah, they definitely could. I mean, especially since with the second one,
how much time actually passes between the first and the second game?
7 years?
5 or 7 years.
I think it's 5. Let me Google it.
Ellie's supposed to be
everything pulled up here.
She's supposed to be 14 in the first one, right?
Okay, about 5.
5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, she's 19. I think in the second game.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
For sure.
So what was the thing that they were doing in those 5 years? Just
Surviving.
Well, rebuilding Jackson.
Jackson.
Or no, they had
an actual community.
Yeah.
Looks like
Maybe they were trying to make a podcast.
They had electricity, so
They did.
They had radio.
Priorities.
yeah, priorities.
Ellie, be sure to like and subscribe, motherfuckers.
We may not
reminds
be
me-
here tomorrow.
Yeah, I think the only other change they made that I thought it wasn't bad, but I think it was underbaked was the addition of Melanie Linsky's character in the 4th and 5th episodes.
With Sam and Henry.
Yeah, like the Sam and Henry section is, one of the more memorable parts of the original game, and giving a kind of a villain, into that storyline, I don't think really was necessary. And
It's kind of a shame
her
too, because
motivations were like,
she's almost like she is a villain, but at the same time, it's like she's doing it for it's like desperation. She becomes a villain out of desperation, not because like she's inherently evil.
that's a common thing, like among the the Last of Us as a franchise. But I don't know, her motivations, her character itself didn't really add much, and it's just like she's just sad about her brother dying, and I don't know, it really just felt so tacked on and just like padding the runtime.
Yeah.
And you could have spent more of that time with Sam and Henry,
Right.
thus making that final scene with them all the more impactful. Not saying it wasn't, because it was perfectly done, and if anything, it was sadder actually when they did die, because they did, like, the kid who played I always forget, Sam's the younger one, right? Am I?
Yes.
Yes.
Like, was so fucking cute, and like making him deaf was like such a brilliant decision.
Stroke of genius.
Yeah, it really was. And it's like the final scene where Ellie writes, when she says like "I'm sorry" on his little notepad, and leaves it by his little grave.
So what else
so
makes
tragic,
it even
but
worse is they made a point in the show to say that God, now I'm getting confused, that Henry, they never killed anyone before. So the first person that the first and last person he ever killed was his little brother, which made that scene even a million times more impactful. Which was really hard to, it was already horrifying in the original, and then, in the game they show it's completely on Joel, and you see like his reaction, like even for a PS3 game, like that was like, it was, I can't even describe it. It was just haunting. And then in the show, it's on Ellie, and like her like yell when he kills himself was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was so good.
Yeah, at first I was like kind of upset that they didn't make that like the final shot, like kind of how it was in the game, where it just like cuts to, I think it was to fall for, when they were going to go see Tommy.
Yep.
But just the addition of the little funeral scene that they had for them, that really was, like you said, a stroke of genius. Just a perfect way to end that. But yeah, I think it would have been even more impactful if, we spent less time focusing on stupid Melanie Linsky's character, and more time spent with, Joel, Ellie, and Sam and Henry. I think that would have, ultimately made that little stretch a bit better, because you can't really, with the exception of David, there's really no villain characters in the original game. There's a few like obstacles and stuff like that, but he's the first person you come across that is like a despicable, horrible,
truly,
villain
beyond.
And I think that makes him more impactful. And I think his introduction is cheapened a bit in the show because of her little 2-episode villain arc. And because you're not really, I feel like you're expecting it more now that they have established that there's going to be like villains in the show.
Yeah.
So
I kind of liked it for the. Go ahead, Blake.
The only thing I was gonna say is that I agree with you that those 2 episodes were, I mean, yes, they ended well, but it was half baked. And I don't know if that was entirely necessary. Like, you could have just did what they did in the game and just be running from a lunatic group of, hunters instead of, trying to add in a subplot that doesn't have any meaning. And you killed the person off anyway. So, at the end there, you know, with
yeah.
Sam. So,
I kind of liked it just because it gave a little more like dynamic to the world itself of The Last of Us. Because like, it's like everyone seems to be like you're like a hunter, or you're a firefly, or you're a person in the quarantine zones, or you're the government of that place. But like having these little like different, like another different faction that's kind of gone the reverse way that the government has. I don't want to say the reverse because the government's pretty messed up with what they do, but it just felt a little more, like if the citizens all revolted and took out the government, which is what happens, and then they take over and they become just as bad, if not worse, than the government itself. Like I thought that was a very just interesting little thing they had. So I didn't mind it. I liked it. I could see why some people might not have enjoyed it as much or what have you, but I personally took it from that perspective. It was interesting to see this other group and how they handled living in a quarantine zone and how they kind of lived in the world that they were given.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I wouldn't find with that, but it's the whole making her like it was her character mainly that me took away from it. Like if they would have just focused on like some regular ass people and like they're like assigned to like find Sam and Henry or something, and just like showing them surviving and everything like that, I think that would have been cool, But instead of having this bitch being like, Henry, he sold my brother out. It just got so tedious. She was so one note. That was like all she talked about. Every scene she was in, she's like, I'm gonna fucking kill the doctor because my brother, and it's just like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
We're all hurting in this world, lady. And
I think it made it more. It made it even better when she actually got her comeuppance at the end.
Yeah, but that was so predictable to me. Like,
yeah.
I knew the bloater was in to get her. Like, I knew, it was going to be.
The bloater didn't get her though. It was the little.
It was the little girl. You're right.
The little creepy girl in the Blue's Clues shirt. The bloater though. Holy shit!
That was
Blue's Clues shirt.
We're gonna talk about how awesome the bloater is.
We should talk about
holy hell.
The fucking makeup in the show, like that shit was next level.
That's good, yeah. That's where the budget went.
So happy that they included the head ripping scene. Like they took the scene in the game, which by the way is way worse in part one, just because of all the it looking a little better and everything. It's hard to watch in the first game. Like every time because it happened to me a bunch, I literally after the first time I turned away because it was just really gross. But him getting his whole head ripped off at the jaw was I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
That's another thing about this, like the amount of detail and work that they put into everything. There was so much practical sets and makeup. It's like a post-apocalyptic version of Lord of the Rings, where they just they put a lot of detail and care into the show and the story.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely felt like I was back in the game. Very, very few instances that I feel like I wasn't actually playing the game, watching the show.
Yeah.
So.
And one thing I will say before we get into, because I do want to talk a little bit about Long Time specifically, but because it's the most different, obviously, episode from the game itself.
Yeah.
I think with The Last of Us, that was obviously a super faithful adaptation. I did mention how they did make Joel a little less scary, a little less imposing, a lot less. But with TV and games, I think a lot of people who play games mostly as their entertainment, like we are, I feel, take for granted, is that a lot of people that don't play games aren't used to characters killing hundreds of people in their movies and shows, right? Even if you watch like a Sylvester Stallone,
John Wick,
they're maybe killing over the course of a movie a few dozen people, which is still pretty bloody. But in the game, that'd be nothing. Obviously a lot of people, to gamers, complained about the lack of zombie encounters in the show versus
That's not the point.
movie, or I mean, versus the game. It's not the point, you know.
No.
And if you just had an entire episode, which they did have basically an entire episode,
Mhm.
which was just going through the zombies, which was episode 2, and it was a good episode. If that was like every single one, it would have gotten boring fast, you know, especially for people who didn't play the game. And you know, that's where obviously, you know, the sequence at, you know, Bill's place in the game, it's a fun part of the game. But if that were what they did in the show, that would have been the most boring episode of the show by far.
Yeah.
You know, it was fun seeing Bill and Ellie, you know, interact, and you know, I kind of wish we still would have gotten that somehow, but it would have taken away from the emotional impact of what we did get.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna touch on
in
something a little bit later on that too, regarding
yeah.
like, you know, just the way the scenes the way everything plays out and how it influences the rest of the journey is like huge. Oh god, I was gonna say something and I can't remember what I was going for. Oh well, I'll probably remember it halfway through or at the very end of the video when we're not recording, but anyway. So do we
Let's
want to
talk
talk
about
about
gay
long time?
Yeah.
Real gay shit.
Yeah. The
So-
Bill and yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, my
Bill
bad.
and Frank. Yeah. So if anyone who played the game, you know, the whole sequence, you just go to this guy's place. You're just trying to get a car, you know, so you can drive across the country. You meet Bill. He's this cranky old guy who's, you know, not really Joel's friend, but an acquaintance, and you know,
Business
it's-
associates.
a business associate. And there's a small moment where, you know, he's complaining about his former partner, and that's the term he uses, and they end up coming across the body of his partner Frank, who hung himself. And you know, Bill's obviously a bit torn up, and at that point it's pretty obvious, yeah, this guy wasn't just a, you know, guy that was helping him kill zombies. You know, this was his boyfriend. And you know, that's really where you leave, you know, Bill. You know, you get the car, and he's just a sad, lonely old man. And I was kind of expecting the episode to go that way, even though I did see in the promos that they were going to show a little bit of Bill and Frank's relationship, but didn't know that the entire episode was going to be Bill and Frank's relationship, and it would be one of the most beautiful and touching and perfect singular episodes of TV I've ever seen.
One of the best love stories like
Yeah.
ever written.
Yeah,
It- and-
it was basically perfect from beginning to end.
Yeah.
The entire episode.
Yeah, how it started, what we went through, or what they went through, and how it wrapped up all in one episode it was fantastic. And then, you know, a couple episodes later, we had the Melanie character come in. Yeah. So you got one end of the spectrum and the other end of the spectrum.
Good change, bad change. And obviously I think what really made it that way was that, you know, and a lot of people are saying like, oh, it wasn't like the game, therefore bad. And like, you know, to me, like if something is super faithful because at the core what it's adapting is truly that perfect, then stick to it. You know, if there's things you want to add, like almost all the other changes in The Last of Us show were additions. They weren't changing things really. You know, they added those scenes at the beginning where it showed like the people talking about the virus and everything. It added that villainous character, but it didn't really change the core of what happened. You know, this one actually does, because again, if they adapted what was in the game, you know, it would have been just an hour of people looking for a car battery. So in the end,
Not
you know,
exciting.
exactly. And so it does alter in the end exactly what happens, because, you know, Joel and Ellie do not actually meet Bill like they do in the game, and instead it's just this super. Obviously, it's a sad ending for Bill and Frank, but it also is a sweet ending. It's a bittersweet ending.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, obviously Frank's dying, you know, and has decided that he's going to end his life, and he wants to have one last beautiful day with, you know, the man he's loved for the last 20 years. And, Bill gives him exactly that. Take him. They go and sit in the garden. They have a beautiful dinner, and Frank really at this point wants Bill to continue to live and maybe find someone else, but that's not what Bill wants. And instead, Bill decides he's going to kill himself the same way that Frank is, and they die together in each other's arms. And my only small complaint about this is that they die in each other's arms in their bed, and Joel and Ellie come in that house and they're like, "Hey, no, it's okay. We left the window open. You're not gonna smell." I'm like, that's not how dead bodies work, guys.
No.
This depends on how long they've been there for, though.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it's
because
because there wasn't something where
there was like
I thought Joel had, because they had their little communication system where they'd play a song or what have you. I can't remember if like Joel was sending something to Bill, or Bill sent something to Joel before they got there.
It was 80s music, yeah. Bill sent 80s music to Joel as the code. Yeah,
so I'm not sure, it could have been how long they could have been there or what have you, but...
Still, bodies sure to smell pretty early.
That's going to be, that's ripe.
Yeah, that's gonna be...
I've never seen a dead body before. I don't want to, but I can imagine they're probably. It's not pretty.
It's a very small complaint, because otherwise it's... Go ahead, Joe, I'm sorry.
I like how... Sorry, go ahead, Danny.
No, you're good, Joe.
I liked how out of time that episode felt, because you didn't. Because the entire time you're like, all right, when's Joel and Ellie showing up? When's Joel and Ellie showing up? And it's just, it never happens up until like the very end there, and then even then you don't even know how much time has passed. So I thought that was a really nice take on this entire episode basically is like its own little bubble microcosm of like the show, and then just Joel and Ellie had just happened to like cross into it,
Yeah. The game itself is so miserable, and Bill obviously has a super depressing ending in the game, just like everyone does in that fucking game. So it is nice to see a somewhat happy and sweet ending for any characters.
Yes.
In it, and also like obviously the note that Bill leaves to Joel just really reinforces the theme of the story, and I think makes it all the more powerful because, at this point, both Joel and Bill had been, sad, old, lonely guys and never really found a thing worth living for or fighting for or dying for. And Bill had found that and obviously, got to live a pretty beautiful life because of it. And, he wants... as much as he doesn't really like Joel all that much, still wants it for him. And I think that's kind of what Joel carries with him into the finale. And, for better or worse, is what drives him to do what he did, because he found that person worth living for. He found the person worth damning all of humanity for, in his eyes. Yeah. And I think that's, anyone who says that episode was pointless just
is an idiot.
Tiny little... Yeah, tiny little kid brains that don't understand themes and things like that.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with you. Like, just, that little change, making, like, Bill being a positive influence in Joel and the way, in making that the driving force toward going on this journey with Ellie was powerful. It was beautiful and powerful, and just again that little changing that to a positive was easily one of the best things that resonated throughout the entire show and just carried it from to the end.
Now did that episode end up winning any kind of awards?
Nick Offerman won best at the Creative Emmys. He won best guest actor. And they won. There's other awards they won because they got nominated for 24 awards at the Emmys, and I think there was 14 of them that took place at the Creative Emmys, and they won 9 of them, I believe.
It sadly probably won't win any of the big ones because it is going up against Succession's final season. So which Kieran Culkin and
I think Snare Snook both won their respective points over Bella Ramsey and Pedro.
Well, the Emmys are tonight, actually, unless that's
well, they
already
did
happened.
those. They got their awards already for that because I think that was part of the. I think those because they were like supporting
you're
actors
thinking
or
of the
whatever.
Golden. I think you're thinking of the Golden Globes.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. The Golden Globes. Yes.
The Emmys are
Sorry.
tonight. I mean, the, not because obviously there's two. There's the creative Emmys and then there's the standard.
No, I got those
ones,
two mixed up.
Which are
So
tonight,
yeah, you're right.
So. That's okay.
But yeah,
so there's a chance that they could win, but I don't know if I mean they were both great, but I'm not sure that either of them. Were
I think Succession should easily get a lot of wins tonight for sure. Nothing against The Last of Us, but Succession, especially with it being the final season and how strong that show was from beginning to end, which is really, really hard to do in today's climate because there's always some, at least one season that just completely sucks or like goes down. And Succession was just, I don't want to get too far into it because this is about The Last of Us, but yeah, Succession was just strong from beginning to end.
But The Last of Us will have other chances.
Exactly.
The Last of Us will have other chances. I'm sure it will, and I mean, obviously, we'll get to 2 in a bit, but there's going to be a lot of parts in, season 2 that will give, the actors plenty of time to shine, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, long time, one of the most beautiful pieces of just anything I've, read, watched, played. That's it. Full stop.
Do you think Joel in the game, Joel knew about Frank being Joel's boyfriend?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so too. I just
you can find the notes and everything, and obviously it's still not explicit, but it's pretty obvious.
I'm not sure how long Frank had been dead for in the game because he looked pretty far gone, like he was completely decomposed or whatever, but I think it was like they definitely did. And then of course, you go in, the whole ending sequence of I guess the game and the show where they're driving away with the truck and everything, and Ellie busts out the porno mag.
I'm so glad I kept that. I was worried they were gonna take that out.
They're just gonna censor.
Why are these pages stuck together? I'm just fucking with you. Bye-bye, dude.
Yeah, that was a good
so
moment.
Great.
That was a nice moment of relief in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a lot of little bits of levity and just that's why I always liked in the game where she busts out the jokes. Like everything's so dour and miserable. You just murder a bunch of people. There's just silence. You wait around for a little while, and she's like, "I'm gonna lighten the situation here." And she busts out the joke. I'm also glad they kept that throughout the show too.
Joke book,
yeah, her being just so sarcastic and jokey, and I think that's we'll get more into it. The Last of Us 2. Part of it that was missing from The Last of Us 2 was that levity, that little ray of sunshine that Ellie was, and you could say it's part of her character arc in that game, but she has so much personality and so much charm in this one. Like she could have easily been super annoying. Because, as we all know, kids are annoying. No one likes them. But when they're being played by who is actually a 30-year-old woman, modeled after a famous actor. But they really did, work to make, Ellie as likable as she was. And if she wasn't as likable as she was, you wouldn't understand why Joel does what he does.
You wouldn't have cared.
Yeah, you wouldn't care. Like, if Ellie were the way she were in The Last of Us 2, in The Last of Us 1, I would have been like, fucking cut her fucking open. She's just dour, miserable bitch. I don't give a fuck. Take out her fucking brain. One more thing. This is where I want to defer to our medical expert, Raj. Something Claire had brought up when we were watching the show and previously when we played the game. Not so much a plot hole as it is might be like a slight plot dent that you might be able to elaborate on. But they never really explain why they can't just take out a part of Ellie's brain. Like, why can't they just do that? Why do they have to take out the whole fucking thing? Like, people get parts of their brain taken out all the goddamn time. and they're fine. So, with the fireflies, why couldn't they have done that to extract the cure? Like, I don't know. Like, it's something that she'd brought up that I was like, huh. I guess they never
it's
really explained
possible.
that.
I mean, it depends. I mean, is their entire brain?
It was around her entire
pure,
brain.
or is it? I mean, it just depends on which part they take out. Yeah, people. I mean, they're not the same afterwards, depending on no matter what part of the brain you take out. But yeah, she could certainly have had some part of her brain resected, and
I feel like they could have done, especially in the show, maybe explained away that plot hole a little bit, because they could have easily said like, well, the fungus is like completely metastasized, all over her brain, so you essentially have to take out the whole thing. You can't just take out part of it, or something easy like that. I don't know. Like, I'm no expert either.
Well, doesn't the
maybe for a cure standpoint, it's just a part that they take out. I guess in that world, sure, but I mean, it's kind of hard to comment on that. It's all
I guess I've been thinking about.
my thought on that would be, isn't the fungus supposed to like attack like the lower brain stem?
If it's in their midbrain, yeah, no, you can't take that out. They'll die.
Oh,
Yeah,
that could be it.
Yeah, because that's where that's the whole point of the cordyceps. It latches on, infects their brain, starting at the brainstem, and continues to introduce these chemicals and feed off the body. And like they said in the beginning, it basically operates the host like the person like a marionette. Basically, it's like a puppeteer with a marionette. Like they don't have controllers, just because of how they explained it in the show.
It's tough to even take out the brainstem, and it's very dangerous. That's where your centers for breathing, your heart rate, everything is controlled at there. So no, you couldn't be able to take a part of that out. If it was like a top of their brain, like a cortex or something, or just like the outer part of your brain, sure, but not midbrain. No, that's impossible.
Gotcha.
This has been the we have to think of a segment where we ask Raj a medical question. We have to have like a segment where a little graphic pops up and plays a little bit of music or something.
I mean, what do I know? I'm just an oncologist. So.
Diagnosis time with Raj. Dr.
I had
Raj.
to consult a neurologist. Let me ask an actual neurologist.
Bring him on as a guest for the show.
Yep.
I think The Last of Us, the show obviously proved, that, because at first I'd wondered, I'm like, was the story in this game really that great, or was the bar just like so low for video games that it just really felt so much more special than it really was? And I think when the show came out and like everyone watched it, whether they'd played the game or not, like my mother-in-law, my aunts, so many people who'd never picked up a controller even in their lives, were watching the show and being affected by it, and just goes to show that it really was that good to begin with. And like now there's a great way. I mean, if I ever want to relive the story, I'll probably pick the game usually over the show, except maybe watching Long Time, like as a one-off. But it's so cool that so many more people now who don't play games get to experience the story in a very, very good version of the story at that. Because it could have sucked. It could have been just a shitty, horrible retread, or they could have
Like
done
Uncharted.
something.
Excuse me. Sorry.
How'd that get in there?
No, I stepped in shit.
God.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But yeah, it helps when you have as much with the Mario movie as well. When you have the actual people that make the game, they craft the world and the story and the characters, when they're directly involved, or I guess in Nintendo's case, when you're super fucking stingy with your IP because you've seen what other people have done to it in the past, and you keep it under lock and key for so long. When you have those.
In that case, it was so faithful and so willing to. So unwilling to take any kind of risks that it was just a.
They didn't want another Super Mario Brothers.
That is true.
Yeah, that's the reason. But yeah, having Neil Druckmann there the entire time, even directing this episode 2, I think it was. He did the second episode.
Yeah, something
with
like
Tess
that.
and everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
And then Craig Mazin having such a this massive respect for that story, and then bringing his own strengths into it from working on Chernobyl. Like, it was a very wonderfully well done collaboration between those two, and it paid off in spades. And I'm really excited to see where they take seasons 2 and 3. It's probably seasons 2 and 3.
Yeah,
if I'm guessing, because
season
season 2 is pretty, part 2 is so long they should probably do 2 seasons out of it.
Yeah, we'll talk more about like where we think it'll be split, because I have thoughts about that.
Yeah, me too.
I have some too, so yeah,
for sure.
I'll get there. But yeah, like you were saying, Joe. It's super great that these people, maybe someone has picked up control in their life, was able to experience these stories. Because I remember when I was living with my grandmother, and it's funny because it actually was for Uncharted. I played the second game, and she would sit down and watch me for a little bit, and one of the comments she made at one point, she's like, "What's wrong with those people's eyes? They look fake. This is a fake movie." And what have you, which it makes sense because in Uncharted 2, like even The Last of Us, they still hadn't gotten the eyes quite right, It still kind of looked like a little buggy. But I remember playing Uncharted 3 and I was playing that. She's like, "This is a very good movie." I was like, "Thanks, Grandma." It was wonderful. So it's, again, really great that other people get to experience these stories that, only as a small section or fraction of humanity has gotten to. It's nice.
It really is.
So, but I don't have anything much else to say about The Last of Us. It's one of the best games ever written, ever made. Holds a very special place in my heart, and I'll definitely most likely play through part 1 again. Probably 100% that.
For sure. And of course, with it having arguably the greatest, most, in my opinion, definitive ending in any, not just any game, but in any story I've ever seen, like, did they need to make a sequel? I guess y'all just have to find out next time what we think about that.
Ooh.
Absolutely not. I'm sorry.
So this week. It's been diagnosis with Dr. Raj, and
Looks like
please be sure to ask all of your health-related questions in the comments, and he'll be happy to answer all of them.
More
looks like
no charge.
No charge. Concierge medicine.
People are just gonna be sending pictures of
Just
boils
leave
on
your
their ass and shit.
social security number and your credit card info just for complete mistake.
Oh my god. So yeah, I do have some homework, I guess. To who just booted up some game.
I feel like we should probably do. Cause I don't think we'll be able to continue for part 2 because I didn't know it would go this long.
No.
I didn't get to talk about
I just have to
factions.
go to bed
Oh
soon.
well, I'll save it for the next episode.
Oh no! Yeah, you can talk about it
That's
next time.
fine.
Yeah, we can definitely save it. Yeah. There was one thing I wanted to ask you guys. Did you like the in the game the Pittsburgh sequence when you finally escape from the hunters and you go through the sewers? You see like Ish and his little community that started up. Did you guys enjoy that, like reading about what had happened in there and stuff like that?
I thought it was
Did I like it?
Part.
No, it was depressing and sad and terrible.
And
But do I appreciate it and understand its inclusion?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's cool. I just very quick thing. I don't know.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I forgot about
It's one of my favorite things because it shows a little bit more of what was happening in that world, so, instead of through the eyes of our characters. So that's all.
Sure.
Yeah, it's because it was one of those segments where we're basically learning stuff along with them.
Yeah,
And that you didn't even expect to learn about.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Like there's life outside of the characters.
No way.
No, I thought it was only death and
No
despair.
way.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
So
Cool.
yeah,
So-
I personally have some homework to do for Last of Us Part 2 because I have not played the game. So
Do you own it?
I do not own it, and so I'm just
Just
gonna,
watch it.
I'm
Let's
just-
watch
I'm-
like
I'm
a
just gonna-
compilation on
I'm
YouTube.
just gonna spoil it for myself. So I have something to say. So
And when you
I
get
think I'm gonna
around
get
to
back
it, I
and
mean,
just play where I started, where I left off, and beat it.
Yeah, I know you haven't finished it, Raj. Have you finished it, Blake? Too?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
I finished it.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
Yeah, I got
Even
a
if
lot
you guys,
to say.
even if you guys have to just look up the Wikipedia thing or just watch the thing on YouTube, or in your case, Raj, if you just want to play, start off where you left, that might be good.
I was pretty
know where you
far.
left
I
off?
mean, I've already met Abby. I'm like way past that and stuff. And,
Okay.
I can't remember exactly where I'm at, but I mean, I put in a lot of hours. I could imagine.
It's like a
I'm
20-hour game though. Like the first one's like a
Yeah.
what, a 10-hour game, like at most.
I'd say 10 to 15, and I think
Second one's
I
it.
think the second one's more like closer to like. I think it took me 25 or
It's like
30
20
hours
or
to beat.
25. Yeah, it's pretty big.
I put in a good
Um,
amount of hours, so I think I should be able to beat it by
Is
the
the
time-
is the PS5 update gonna be out? Before
The
next
19th.
week? Oh, so it's like,
Yeah, it's coming out soon.
oh
What's
shit.
the
no, it's
So
coming
yeah,
out
you
with
can
like-
either find a PS4 copy.
Yeah,
You
like
might be
10
able to find
bucks.
it cheap before the thing comes out. But yeah, you can then upgrade to the PS5 version for $10 if you have the PS4 version, either digitally or physically. So,
Oh. I'll just buy
I
it
might do it.
physically.
so yeah, I mean, $10.
Least
I mean, that's where, especially with the new mode they're adding, like
Oh shit, that's
it's
right.
roguelite. That's incredible. I'm
Everything's
so excited.
roguelike now.
I have a quick question. Why is
Invest.
it called roguelike?
Roguelike. Because it's like Rogue.
Like, what does that
Actually,
mean?
There.
it's funny because we talked about this in the episode where you weren't here, actually. So it's Rogue was like an old game from either like the 80s or 90s that, you know, basically every time the game was done, you had to start over again. Like it wasn't like, you know, and it was a little different each time you played it. So like it, you know, it was similar but not exactly the same. And a lot of games, you know, use that game's structure, which again the game was called Rogue, so the subgenre became called roguelike. So, you know, they just never came up with a more creative or more
Oh,
fitting name after that.
because I didn't know about that term roguelike until like we discussed it. Like,
hmm
that's why I've never heard of it. I was like,
We're all
oh,
And there's
Rogue
two
Squadron-like? Is it
roguelike
like a
and
Star Wars
roguelite,
reference?
so you have to.
Rogue Squadron.
Rogue, Rogue Squadron, Rogue Leader,
It's Rogue Squadron-like?
Yeah.
Well, that's weird. That's kind of...
Rogue from X-Men.
Yeah. It's good.
But
Rogue
Okay.
Warrior, that terrible game with Mickey Rourke.
Nice.
But
All right. Cool.
Alrighty,
Alright.
guys. Well, I'm going to
Yeah.
hop off. It's getting kind of late here.
Yeah.
Great
Yeah.
seeing you
it's getting
guys.
all
late.
right, gentlemen, great talking to you as always, and thanks everyone for watching.
Yes. Thank
We'll see you next time for our part 2 discussion.
I love you all.
See y'all
Deuces.
later. All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Later.